Welcome everyone to tonight's school committee meeting. Matt Hunt, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We need to do our school committee reorganization. We had a big week last week. We had town meeting, and then we had the election, or sorry, the week before, town meeting and the elections. But before we do the reorganization, I would like to put some thanks out there to Mark Rombacher. Mark stepped in last year and was appointed to serve the last year of Paula Vella's term, because Paula had moved over to the Board of Selectmen. We appreciate the effort that Mark, he was a contributing member right out of the gate and was active all year long, which wasn't a surprise because he's been active in other volunteer aspects in the school community for many years. So we appreciate the year that Mark gave us on the school committee. And we now welcome Matt Hunt, who won the election. So Matt, you are our newest member. Welcome to the school committee.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right, so now we do need to reorganize, and I believe I need to pass control of the meeting over to the superintendent.
You do. One of the very few times
Momentarily.
during the year. I'll have to relish this. As everybody knows, tonight's the reorganization meeting, and we typically have a reorganization meeting after the elections every year. And my job as superintendent is to handle the process for election of chairman, and after the chairman has been elected, I turn the meeting back over to them. So it's a very quick turnover, so to speak. At this point in time, I will accept nominations for the position of chairman.
I'd like to nominate Mike Fontanella for chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? This time, I'll entertain a motion.
I think we already, do we have to now make a motion after that?
Make a motion to elect Mike Fontanella as chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mike. Well done.
Conducted for like 8 years. Don't even, I can't get rid of them. So thank you, I appreciate your confidence. All right, so now we need to nominate vice chair.
I'll nominate Daryl Baker as vice chair.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other nominations? All right, hearing none. I'm going to do a little different. All those in favor of Daryl Baker as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, and the last one that we need is a secretary.
I'll nominate Alex. Would you like to be secretary? Sure. I'll nominate Alex Pratt.
Second.
Ms. Bradford nominated. Any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none. All those in favor of Alex as secretary?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. All right, thank you. All right. Now we're going to move on to our subcommittee appointments. Now this, we don't necessarily need to vote, it's just consensus. We have a list in our packet of the various subcommittees. The first one is the Bradford Sampson Scholarship Trust. A couple of meetings and right around this time of year just to work on the awarding of scholarship money to graduating seniors and alumni. Current assignment was Mark Rombacher. Is there anybody who would like to jump on this one?
Have they met yet? It says in May. We're already halfway through May.
I don't, honestly do not know.
I'm not sure.
I'll take it if it's open. No one else wants it.
All right, you're the winner, Matt. Thank you.
Oh.
All right, the second is the Permanent School Planning Committee. Recommendation for additional school space. So we're not currently advocating for that, so no appointment necessary at this time. Although it is something to think about, we do need to do we talked about doing a good solid assessment of where we are and where our capacities are, so stay tuned on that one. Evaluation involves management of the superintendent's evaluation once a year. Current assignment is Daryl, he's had it for a few years now.
I don't mind continuing if somebody else wants to take. I'm up for that also.
Okay, he did a good job with the last one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave that with Daryl. Next one is the Regionalization Study Committee. Again, this is something that was a little active for a while. We haven't really done anything with this, right? So Kelly is on it. Let's leave Kelly there, and if it becomes active for some reason, we'll actually tag somebody out of our group to run along with you on that. Municipal Building Committee, which is a very busy assignment. Daryl's been active on this one. He's done a good job of getting in there and organizing some of the projects they have. And how you feeling about that?
Yeah, no, I'll continue on that one.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody else?
Yeah, I can't do
More than all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Technology Committee. Currently, it's Alex. You okay with that, Alex? All right. Anybody else? No, I'm fine with it, so. All right. All right, legislation. Coming up on pending legislation down at the State House. Currently, Mike Mazzoni. We spend some time down there.
Yep,
Good.
yeah, I'm fine with it.
All right. Policies. There is no way that we're not going to let Daryl Baker keep being policy guru.
Yeah, no, I want to pass that baton on. I've done it for 5 years.
Do you really want to pass it on?
Yes.
Oh, all right. I stand corrected.
It's, well, no, I mean, I've enjoyed doing it, but it's time for somebody else.
Well, you know, there is something to be said for that, because it would be good to, you know, create some deeper institutional knowledge, so
Yep.
that's fine. Who's looking for something to do?
I'm not personally, but if nobody else is.
I mean, the good news is you will have Daryl to, you know, to help you out and, you know, make sure you're not screwing it up too badly. So,
And we're in good shape.
and we're in very good shape.
I'll take it on if no one is jumping for it.
All right, you win.
But I don't know how I feel about the candy yet, so
Yes.
change is coming.
You can bring a basket of fruit.
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Alex on that one. All right, oath to bills and payroll, ability to stop by the central office. I'm still Littleton bound every day, so I'm fine hanging on to that. Liaison with town government, serving as school committee contact with town boards. I think it's appropriate for the chair to continue to hold on to that role. I'll delegate as I feel like I need to. Negotiations, work with the school committee's attorney and the superintendent during negotiations with collective bargaining units. We should talk about this one, because we are going to at least start the process this year, you know, at least start thinking about timing and things like that. Are we going into the third year?
We are.
Yeah, so this is definitely going to be something that's going to happen this year, so this needs somebody.
Wait, so FY 17 would be the third year?
Right.
So we'll
Right.
probably begin, we would expect to begin negotiating.
November.
Yeah,
Yeah,
November.
fall.
Yeah.
We'll probably start dialogue with the LEA about calendars and process even earlier than that, but then actually sitting down in a room together would be November. So this one is definitely live.
So I would like to be on the negotiations committee if the seats are open.
Anybody else who's interested?
Used to have two.
There are two. Minimally, we should have two.
Yeah.
We should definitely have two. And
Yeah.
the superintendent will be part of that, and we will also have representation from the Board of Selectmen. Doesn't necessarily have to be a selectman. They've appointed the town administrator at times. And we'll see what they decide to do. That's their call. But we should have at least two of us on there.
Are we limited to two?
Well,
We can't have a quorum.
Right.
Can't we? Don't we post anyway because it's an executive session?
You don't want to have a quorum during your negotiations because the three of you have to vote.
Right.
Whoever's on the thing votes, and then by having a quorum, you'd be voting the whole committee.
Right.
Right.
Positioning the committee.
Right.
So you can't have three.
I would like, you know, Mike, if you were available to be the second on that. So that
Yeah,
we
I think
have,
there's,
you know.
I think there's advantage of having someone who's on the budget subcommittee and somebody who's on the leadership of the school committee
Yeah.
as part of that.
I mean, I've done two. I feel like it would be worthwhile, very worthwhile to have someone
experience
who's
there,
done it.
Yeah.
So I'm open to participating. So that's fine. Are there
Yeah.
any other points of view on that? Anybody else? All right, so it's Mike and Mike. All right, representative to Community Services Park and Rec Department. Current assignment was Mark Rombacher.
I'll take it since it was Mark's, if no one else wants it.
All right, that's fine. All right, thank you, Matt. All right, budget subcommittee is currently Alex and I, and has been for a couple of years. Anybody else that wants to get in on that action?
That's good.
I'm fine continuing to do it.
Me too.
You want to
Kind of have it set up so that we meet early mornings in Littleton, so, I mean, I'm available, it's not that hard to do for me, so.
And then we talked about putting safety and security back on here last year, but never made it back on, but.
So we just need to have somebody represent them. They're not, I think we assign a liaison to those pieces there.
Yeah, we had this conversation last year, and
Oh, it
it's
was
similar
just
to a lot of
dated,
these.
yeah.
Yeah, so, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to keep being that liaison.
For safety.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
That's great.
Is there anything else that we feel like we should acknowledge our representation?
CPAC.
CPAC.
We're,
thank you.
yeah.
Right.
As a special ed teacher, I'd like that position.
So that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. All right. Anything else?
We're good.
I
Excellent.
might want another partner on the school start time. I also want to see,
Yeah.
because Mark has put in a lot of work on that, I want to see if he's still interested in helping us.
No problem with the community
If
input,
not,
yeah,
I will,
absolutely.
I will come back to look for a.
Yeah, let us
partner.
know.
All right. Let's just keep moving the process forward, and if you feel like you definitely need someone sitting there more often, let us know, and we'll figure
Sure.
that one out. That's not like an ongoing committee, we're really gonna do something or we're
Right.
not, and then we're gonna be, well, I wouldn't say we're gonna revisit it, something. That's more like work,
Mhm.
standing committee. All right, then we good on all that? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, thank you. All right, now, consent agenda, we need approval of the minutes from April 28th, 2016, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any input, comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Interested citizens? Anybody here like to speak on any matters in front of the school committee? Seeing none. We'll move on to recognition. Mr. Clenchey.
Something a little different from our first one we recognize this year. As you know, this is our second year of recognizing teachers within our district for excellence in teaching. And tonight, we're going to be recognizing a middle school teacher. And when we're looking at this particular recognition, we're looking for somebody who has the whole package, for lack of a better phrase, somebody who goes beyond the regular duties of what a teacher does in their classroom, is cognizant of the development of the whole child, uses best and next practice, is considered a leader amongst their peers, takes risks within the classroom, and represents our district in an exemplary way. This year's recipient is an incredible teacher, and we're very fortunate to have her on staff within our district. In terms of taking risks, very few teachers I've met in my career that decide to experience a culture firsthand and pack everything up, and in this case move to Vietnam and teach for 2 years. Can you imagine what kind of a cultural change that would be, and also a change from being away from family and being away from your job? And we were very gracious as a school committee to grant a 2-year leave of absence to this year's recipient. We've reaped many benefits from her experience in Vietnam, and I was thrilled to see her walk into my office last summer, ready to come back and assume her position. It's with great pleasure that I announce this year's winner, Lily Fannebecker. Congratulations, Lily. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Branco to say a few words about Lily's contributions to the middle school.
Right on camera.
Good evening. For the past 8 years, 2 away and 6 here with us, Lily Fannebecker has been an integral member of the LMS community. Lily has made an immeasurable impact on her students, her colleagues, the culture at the middle school, and the relationship between our school and the community of Littleton. Lily is a model educator who plans and executes engaging, meaningful, authentic, and challenging lessons and units that result in her students demonstrating a deep understanding of the subject matter and the authentic connection between the classroom and the real world. She makes geography and social studies meaningful and relevant for her students by connecting the past with today while challenging her students to look to the future. Lily provides her students with a variety of learning experiences that extend well beyond the typical classroom. Her students have participated in an all-class Skype with a leader from Heifer International, taken an inside-out look at the Earth through a partnership with Bridgewater State's Earthview project, taken trips to Overlook Farm, demonstrated expert knowledge of the world's countries through the Country Expo, and showed off their skills in the Geography Bee. These are just some of the many, many experiences that Lily has provided our students in her ongoing efforts to connect with each and every student that enters her classroom. Lily's warm, calm, engaging delivery style provides her students with an inclusive classroom environment that allows them to feel safe being themselves and taking academic and social chances. She has the natural ability to make personal connections with a wide variety of students. As a result, her students respect her, seek out her advice, and respond positively to her. Lily is reflective in her practice and is constantly exploring new ideas and techniques that will help her best meet the needs of her students. She's a very strong role model for all of our students. Lily is also a fantastic colleague who has made many professional contributions to our school as a whole. She is collaborative, sensitive to the needs of others, and always willing to lend a hand when needed. She has enhanced our learning community in a variety of ways, including by serving on the Character Education Committee, the school leadership team, and the school council. Even while she was on leave teaching abroad in Vietnam, Lily remained connected to us through her incredible blog, emails, letters, and visits back home. Additionally, Lily works hard to maintain a strong partnership between home and school. She communicates very well with parents and has earned their trust and respect throughout her years here in Littleton. It is my pleasure to present Lily Fennenbecker with this year's LMS Littleton Public Schools Excellence in Teaching Award.
Here we go. Okay.
Now this way. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we have a box.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
And next on the agenda, we have an alternate student representative this evening. I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Biagioni, and I'm here to present the events that have been happening in the public schools. So at the high school, today there's a Roman banquet. That's where Olivia is. The 10th grade is having their MCAS next Tuesday and Wednesday. Awards night, like for academic achievement, is on May 19th. Relay for Life at the track is on May 20th. And the seniors' last day is May 20th as well. At the middle school, the 7th grade has MCAS today and tomorrow. They're also putting on a show, Robin Hood, that is this weekend. I hear it's fantastic, and tickets will be sold at the door or at mktix.com. The 8th grade also has Science and Math MCAS from May 16th through the 19th. The 7th grade has a field trip to Old Sturbridge Village. On May 23rd, the 8th graders are going to Washington, D.C., and the 6th graders are going to Nature's Classroom. Russell Street, they're having a math and literacy now today from 6 to 6:30, and I have no events from Shaker Lane.
Thank you. A few other recognitions this evening. Well, we just recently finished our annual town meeting, and at this time I'd certainly like to thank our community for their continued support of education. We had a rather long town meeting this year, and probably the most well-attended meeting that I've seen since I've been here as superintendent. It's always nice to see citizens out and talking about their passion over certain issues and and concerns about the community and how the community is growing. So I'd like to thank everybody for turning up, and also again for supporting the school's budget. Last week we had our high school spring concert and art show, very well received, great turnout. We have so many talented students in the area of music and art. It's really nice to see that those two programs flourishing in our high school, and it's really an opportunity to showcase our students, and it's just a nice opportunity for our community to come out and see what our students are doing at the high school level. So thanks to everybody involved in organizing that event. And that brings me to the end of the acknowledgement section.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, we have one presentation tonight, student accommodations and intervention processes.
There was some conversation a little while ago about DCAP, and what does DCAP mean in terms of the whole concept of making sure that our students have all the help that they need to learn. And DCAP is really a plan that is teacher-specific, it's teacher-generated, it's what our teachers do within their classrooms in terms of creating accommodations when they have struggling learners in their classroom. It's a process that's utilized prior to the potential identification of special education services. And by no means, if somebody is receiving services from a DCAP, which is informal in terms of teacher services, doesn't mean that they're headed down the road to special education identification. It's just an opportunity to focus in on an area that they're having trouble with. More often than not, they're back in the swing of things in no time. But it's just a cognizant awareness that a student is struggling on a particular concept within a unit. In one subject area, perhaps others, depends on the individual situation. We felt that it was important to create a schematic so that parents had an understanding of what that process was all about. It helps formalize the process, and it's also a nice schematic for teachers to have so that they can see the various pathways that our students can take when they're in that DCAP phase of the plan. At this time, I'll call on Dr. Jamian to come up and present the schematic to us.
Test tomorrow.
There's DVR here.
Good evening. As the superintendent indicated, this document accompanies the DCAP. And just a little bit of context for this document, background information again on the DCAP. The district curriculum accommodation plan, we presented to you in the community the revised version, updated version in January. That sets forth the program supports and classroom strategies utilized to meet the needs of diverse learners in the regular education setting. And as we indicated in our last presentation, that DCAP, the current DCAP, as it stands now is revised, noted major improvements in our efforts to meet the needs of struggling learners by documenting a series of categories of strategies utilized in the regular ed classroom. And that categorization of strategies was key to the DCAP and also key to this individualized way of meeting student needs. The classroom strategies fall in a number of different categories. Assessment, instruction, it could be strategies used to support students' organizational needs, providing assistive technology, changing the structure, physical seating aspects in the room, or temporary health or medical. So because it is clearly categorize these classroom strategies that are utilized in regular ed settings. These have become in terms of strategies, the prioritized strategies that are utilized within the Littleton Public Schools to meet the diverse needs of our learners. And because of that document, it then serves as a formalized reference point for individualizing learning. That reference point is there, creates shared understanding on the part of staff in their efforts to analyze and understand and accommodate students' needs, and parents as well. So then the schematic, I said it accompanies the DCAP. What this schematic does is it provides the context for the educational decision-making that's grounded in the DCAP for meeting the needs of learners in the regular education setting. And it sets forth a flow chart of the processes for providing accommodations and interventions, many explicitly referenced in the DCAP, for meeting the needs of struggling learners. And I would point out that this is a broad representation of how we deal with individual needs. So individual cases, the stories, the narratives, the progress monitoring of individual students, that's a highly individualized process. And the DCAP and the schematic went through an iterative process. This schematic went through 3 revisions with the Administrative Council, and it's important to note that many of these processes have been part and structures within our district, but what we wanted to do and what the superintendent and Administrative Council felt was important to do was set up a flow chart to show people that decision-making process. At the top, we see a student need could be identified by the student themselves, by a parent, by a teacher, and this happens, in each of the 180 days of the school year. It happens all the time. And our teachers emphasized when they were developing the DCAP that these are strategies that the teachers use in classrooms, but the DCAP are the prioritized strategies. So by their own headlights, the regular classroom teacher consults with and references the DCAP and takes a look at what strategies to use for this student on a short-term basis, and to help them with a specific task, to help them with a specific unit within a specific time frame. And it's important to note that the monitoring of student progress, it's central in the schematic and it's ongoing. That was the purpose of the two-way arrows. You'll see throughout these two-way arrows, okay, to show that even when things are going well, it's part of good teaching practice to constantly monitor student progress and to make sure that that first step, that initial menu of accommodations and strategies implemented are meeting students' needs. Now we have a number of teaming structures in place, K to 12, that it could be school specific or grade level specific. And here, if a student is not making progress or is still struggling, that the teacher will consult with guidance, with other teachers in a formalized structure of a grade level team and a little bit more formalized structure of data team meetings that are held 3 times a year for either reading or math. And therefore, then the regular ed accommodations and interventions are reviewed again from a different with the input of a number of different professionals at the grade level or in the team. And again, you go through that same process of monitoring student progress to see if the program supports offered, the accommodations offered, the classroom assessment, instructional, behavioral strategies are meeting that student's needs. If the student continues to struggle, at that point, there could be a consultation, what's termed the student support team. And here there is a little bit more formalized meeting process and formalized tracking of interventions and accommodations. At the point when, after the student support team meets, and there is a time frame for monitoring student progress, three things could happen. The team itself could be reconvened to tweak what the SST plan is, or there could be a recommendation for other types of plans, for review eligibility for special ed, Title I services, 501, academic labs, or the regular ed accommodations or interventions and student supports meet student needs. These arrows and the boxes in the schematic were all processes and structures that are not new to Littleton. What is new is the grounding in the formal document of the DCAP, which explicitly sets forth those prioritized classroom strategies. There are certain, beyond the two-way arrows that I mentioned, and that the ongoing progress monitoring is there to make sure that things are going well at multiple junctures. Okay, there are two other underlying assumptions underlying all the steps in this schematic. And the first is the documentation of student progress. That is always the responsibility of the teacher. It's part of good teaching practice. That documentation itself could take many forms. From student work samples, could be child observation within the classroom. It could be conferencing with an individual student, and it's not always formalized. It comes from teachers authentically, and it's a part of the student-teacher interaction in taking a look at how a student is doing in your classroom. And it is the basis for that ongoing monitoring. The second assumption that underlies all of these steps is a communication with parents regarding student progress. Again, this broad schematic depicts a highly individualized process, and depending on the category of classroom strategies implemented as accommodations. So that communication with parents, like the documenting student progress, takes many forms and is ongoing in a number of different venues. Student progress reports, comments to parents regarding student work samples, emails, conferences, phone calls. So that is basically the schematic that grounds the DCAP in the processes, form, and communications amongst professionals around a individual student needs in order to fully analyze and understand and meet those learning needs, and then move that student along in terms of documenting their work with the new interventions and accommodations and communicating that progress to parents. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Alex?
Thank you.
Yeah, so the step when the DCAP is initially referenced by the teacher, I had a hard time understanding the formality at that stage.
Very first?
Yeah, so, like,
Okay.
the teacher realizes that the student's struggling. At that point, they pull up, and as I understand it now...
I think that's part of good teaching practice. What we have said to the point of the point of the first box,
Mhm.
it was to reinforce that this document, the DCAP, is a living document to guide and support teachers
Okay.
in explicitly setting forth what are Littleton's agreed upon priorities, on how to meet student needs. So
On that point, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so on that point, it's there for reference to the teachers, but is it so that the teachers have reference for it so they don't do they not go, is it formal enough at that stage that they go to other staff members in the district to say, hey, this student has, is struggling in these areas, so is there consultation at that point, or is it so informal at that point that this document is there for sort of like earliest intervention, experimentation?
Earliest intervention is the individual teacher.
Okay.
Taking a look at how that student, that's good teaching practice,
Okay.
and tweaking what goes on and individualizing something when they're in classroom. And it could be quick fix, it
Yeah.
could be something for one specific assignment.
Okay, so,
Okay?
yeah, all right, so-
But if difficulties continue, there are always the structures in place, and that's why we put a second set of structures where teachers are not, we don't want a student or a teacher struggling in isolation. And so
Exactly, right.
therefore, there are all of these collaborative meeting structures that are in place in each of the 4 schools.
And that was my question, is essentially, when does it get to the point where, like you put it well, in isolation, where they're going to try and hammer this out, and then it gets beyond that and goes to, I see there's a specifically for a student sport team, but that's much more formal.
Yes.
Is this something, I wasn't sure if this is something that they're consulting with?
And the grade level data teams, the grade level teams at the middle school, a lot of work is hammered out in those settings. At the high school, you have group teachers having a meeting with the principal or having a meeting with guidance and taking a look at accommodations for a student, and work is hammered out. We wanted to, in as in an encapsulated way that we could, show the different collaborative venues that are part of educational decision-making in Littleton.
I mean, in essence, Mike, it's as simple as at the beginning of the DCAP, it's skill sets that teachers possess. It's pulling out of their toolbox. Something as simple as you're struggling in math, I'd really like you to come in for some extra help. I mean, that would be a simple accommodation.
I think I was misunderstanding. I think I was putting more emphasis behind it than it was. It's essentially.
And then if those interventions don't work, then we eventually end up with an SST, where it's a formalized learning plan. Bring the parents in, bring other supports, and really focus on why the student isn't learning, and come up with a plan to turn that around.
And the reason I was emphasizing the DCAP itself is that it is a document that's,
Right, yeah, I
that's
remember.
there for parents and staff to take a look at and see what are the prioritized strategies in each of these categories, so that there's there's much more of a shared understanding and targeted efforts. And so if you have 130 staff members and you have, many different aspects of practice as an approach to practice, we wanted gain some traction with shared understanding with certain strategies that are our top choices.
And then is that document continually?
It'll be updated every year.
Obviously, best practices from every year. Thanks.
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think it's excellent to have something that its teachers and parents can reference, just so that we know where you're at, and you're not jumping the gun, recommending the kid for services that they may not need. And it puts the onus back on the teachers and the students itself to work things out at first, and it gives them some strategies to work with, so I think it's great.
Thank you. And we wanted to emphasize, the arrows back and forth here purposely for that reason, because, within this schematic, there's 3 or 4 different junctures where you are meeting the needs of students in a regular classroom setting. So it's not this inexorable march towards services outside of the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving into new business. We bumped this one, proposal for temporary storage for the Littleton Youth Football Program. Steve?
Yeah, so we've had a request from the Littleton Youth Football Program to put a temporary storage unit at middle school. Apparently, the issue is they have multiple teams that practice at that field, and coaches have been transporting team equipment in their personal vehicles, and I guess there are situations where a coach gets stuck at work or stuck in traffic, can't get to practice on time, and so the other team is hindered because they don't have lack of equipment on site. So they're looking to place, and the pictures in the packet are terrible. The pictures on screen are a little bit better. A storage unit approximately 8 by 8 behind the middle school. It would be for the duration of the football season, so approximately mid-August to mid-November, whenever that season ends. And they didn't specifically say, but I'm assuming also this will be an annual request, so we should think of it as an annual request as well. So we just thought we'd bring it to school committee and for comments or approval.
Yeah, just because I've seen what they do. They're fairly big tackling dummy, blocking dummies. They're heavy, they're awkward. There have been some great parents that have took it upon themselves to literally carry them down there every night in the back of their pickup truck, put them out on the field, gather them back at the end of the night. So the issue of if the person who's designated to do it can't get there, that's a problem. But it's also a significant amount of effort.
Right.
But it's also important that the kids have the equipment there because it can make a big difference in terms of their ability to get better and learn. So,
And we would work with the highway department to make sure it's in a place where it doesn't interfere with snow removal and unobtrusive place behind the middle school. So looking for comments or approval.
So this is, okay, yeah, August to November, so it won't be left there.
right.
Right.
That makes it even more attractive.
Right, but again, we're assuming that next year they want to do the same thing again.
Right.
So we
Hopefully we
can,
can dodge that for that period of time.
right, so school committee can, at their discussion, we can approve it for 1 year, or you can just say it's going to, we can assume that it's going to be an annual request, and we can bring this to school committee every year, or you can.
I would say
Your
let's
discretion.
go for 1 year, let's see what happens. There could be some changes down there anyway, relative to the alumni field project. It could change the orientation of where they are practicing and what their needs are and everything else. So we'll just do it for 1 year and we'll go from there. Do you want a motion on this one?
That would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the placement of temporary storage unit at the Littleton Middle School for the purpose of youth football.
Seconded.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Thank you on behalf of the youth football, and I'll pass that along.
Thank you. All right, sticking with the theme, next thing is a school committee appointment to the alumni field committee. That's more, there's a real name for it. It's not alumni field committee, but it's close enough. All right. We delayed this one because we were busy, and then we wanted to see what happened at town meeting, and the warrant, the article on the warrant got approved for a bid documents to go out for a design on a renovation of alumni field. I'm going to ask to be this person. When we were getting ready for town meeting, I was dialoguing with the Board of Selectmen and some other people that were involved in this, so I kind of got knee-deep on it, and I'd like to keep going. But I'm open to discussion.
I'm comfortable with that.
That's mine.
All right, I think we actually need a motion on this one because it is a seated committee.
I'll make a motion to have Mike Fontanella be the school committee representative to the Alumni Field Renovation Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, thank you. I'll keep you guys updated as we go through that process. And I know they will be coming to school committee as well, so it won't just be me. All right, next is a proposal to school committee to sponsor a Mass Association of School Committee MASC resolution on spring vacations. Daryl, this is your request.
Yeah, so I wanted to get the sense of our committee here. One of the things that I've noticed as we try to look at adjusting the school calendar is the New England tradition of 2 vacation weeks. And my thought is no one district can change that. Even if we thought that that was the best thing for our students, we can't change it. It affects way too many people that are using in other districts, our teachers that have students there. I feel the only way we can make progress on changing the school vacation calendar is to look at it more statewide. So I was thinking, would the MASC conference be a good place to, try to get a broader dialogue and see if there's a more broader consensus about the shift from 2 vacation weeks to 1 vacation week there. So last week, I had a phone call with Mike Gilbert at the MASC. I mentioned to him in an email to him that I was thinking about trying to figure out what a resolution would look like there. And he agreed with me that no one district, even a group of districts, can't change the calendar themselves. He mentioned one area that I think 5 or 6 school committees banded together to change it, and then one dropped out, and then the whole thing fell apart the next year, type of thing there.
Sorry, I want to stop you there because I'm actually quite, that's curious. So they did what you're talking about, they changed the school calendar to get rid of.
Yeah, they went to 1 year, but what happened was, they thought they had enough support from the surrounding towns,
Right.
because again, you get, between school choice, the tech high schools, things like that, you get people with multiple things there, as well as their teachers.
Right.
So they thought they had enough for a while, and then
So they actually did it for, they
a
actually
couple
went
of years,
with
and
that. Wow.
then one town dropped out, and then the whole thing just fell apart.
And so they went back to the.
Yeah, and then they went back to the 2 weeks type of thing there. So what I would like to try to do is draft a MASC resolution to, again, I wanted to work with Mike a little bit on some proposed options of that, as to whether it's, recommending a study committee to look at shifting to a 1-week thing, recommend proposing legislation to shift to a 1-week thing, or is the sense of the MASC school committees, no, we're not interested in that. And that would give direction to folks in terms of how we're trying to plan our future calendars there. So what I'd like tonight would be is the concurrence of the committee to propose drafting a resolution, and then I'll circulate it to Mike to get some feedback from it, bring it back here, and see if that would be something that we would sponsor as a school committee to MASC, so that it could be presented at the fall conference. Now, the deadline of that, I think, is July 1st to have it finalized there. So I just wanted to throw it out there as to sort of see, is that something this committee would be interested in? And I would be personally interested in trying to push the ball down the court on that, to steal our sports
I was just gonna say, way to invoke Mike Fontenot. You got his support now. Yeah.
Sorry, do we need 5 school committees to sign on to it?
So I was talking about the process there. So there's 2 parts of the process. One, we can submit it to MASC Board of Directors and by the July 1st deadline, and they'll consider whether they'll sponsor it for moving forward in the thing. If you could also pursue 5 districts within your division and 1 other division to support your resolution, and then it doesn't go through the MASC Board of Directors there. I would try to seek concurrence from the MASC Board of Directors for it. But at the same time, using this maybe as an opportunity to try to do a little bit more outreach to at least the other schools in our division through the, division, i.e., do we start participating a little bit more in the MASC processes here? There's, we're part of Division 1, maybe trying to, I'll contact them and reach out to them, and then another division that's nearby would be through the tech school. They're technically in a different division there, so it might be just an opportunity to do some outreach to some of the other school boards around. So
I think this is a great idea because I've been frustrated. There's only so much we can do in this format, but I've noticed that we've gotten our wheels stuck in the mud with this issue, especially because we've talked about it now 2 years in a row and sort of said, like, we'll get to it when we get to it. And I think that this is an actual, tangible way to move forward with it. And I think we probably, Alex and Kelly go to these conferences, but I feel like for the rest of us, we haven't really used probably the MASC network as best as we can. So I think this is a great idea because it's going to end up being a slow, I think we all know that it can't be something that we just do in a bubble. It's going to be a slow moving process that involves getting it, hurting, this whole group of cats. I think it's a really good idea. I'm happy to help if there's anything I I don't know, we can talk about it later, but if you need help with that, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to sort of put it on the table tonight, and then sort of get some guidance forward, and then, again, we'll have to be careful in terms of how many people work on it offline versus at the meetings here, kind of thing, because we don't want to run afoul of the open meeting.
My one comment on the actual, when you go to draft it, I really like the idea of getting a sense of the MASC, and I hope that they agree with us that this is a concern. My piece of advice would be to avoid calling on MASC to draft legislation on this issue, because it will be 10 years until something happens on it.
Right. Part of me wants to get if there was some way of getting a broader vote of all of the representatives at there, is this something they're interested in? Not asking people to commit to changing the vacation, but, is this a worthwhile topic to try to make more formal progress?
We want to undertake this effort as a group, because we're that
kind of thing there. And like I said, I'm going to seek their recommendations too. I've got some working thoughts there that I was probably going to, after this meeting here, shoot a copy to Mike, just to get his feedback on both form and function of it, because he has, some different thoughts, or had thoughts on the topic, and I want to just get their guidance, their inputs on it there before crafting the final resolution.
Great.
Okay. Sorry.
I completely agree. I think that it's going to give us some direction either way, so I think it's a good idea to at least draft the proposal.
I appreciate it, Darrell. I think it is, I think you hit the nail on the head. We can't, there are certain things that, no matter how good an idea we think they are, in a vacuum, we're just not going to be able to affect that type of change. And MASC, Mike's point is right, it is an effective body, or can be an effective body. So if we want to go ahead and get in there and start the process, I think we might be surprised at how quickly other people come on board. I like the idea of framing it as, we're not asking you to support it, we're asking you to support the idea of evaluating the pros and cons, and then we'll see where we end up. So I think if we take that point of view, I would be very interested to see how this process plays out.
If I caught what you mentioned at one of the previous meetings, Kelly, that as part of the superintendent's not conference, group. There's a study committee on start time, and maybe that's what the resolution ends up with, is that we form a more broader, school vacation study group or something, so that there's a more formal recommendation, and if that recommendation comes back is the third week of March, one vacation is the consensus recommendation of the study group, then ask the whole, the whole set of school committees to vote on that. I think a little concerned of trying to rush that too fast, because without that part of the process, I don't think you get the buy-in of everybody
Very true.
with it.
I really think this is a good way to go. Start that conversation at a broader level, and see what kind of input you get from the membership.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you.
We do have one addition, Chairman Fontanella, the Park and Rec letter that
Oh, yes.
handed out.
Yeah. So we had, when we talked about the policy on advertising on school property, we had a member of the Littleton Youth Baseball Board of Directors come and talk about possibly using, shaping the policy in a manner that would allow them to do some marketing and fundraising. And I think we reached a consensus that we were supportive of that effort, and there was a timing component to it because they wanted to actually go ahead and do it. Obviously, we have our process that we need to get through relative to formalizing our new policy on advertising on school property. But we asked them to go over to Park and Rec and talk to them about what their point of view was, and they addressed it and were supportive of it, and they actually took a vote. Mike Crory made a motion to approve, support the request to post temporary sponsorship of LYBS for the spring 2016 in conformity to school committee policy. It was seconded by Kevin Hunt and was a unanimous vote by the PRC, Park and Rec Commission. So given that we've received this, we're going to go ahead and let them know that it's okay to put the temporary signage up, and then...
And we'll continue to work on adopting language within the MOU.
Okay, we all good with that?
Just for, since I'm sometimes a stickler on process as well as policy, I would like to just say that we'll vote to authorize the superintendent to execute the agreement that he's worked out with Park and Rec
That's a
for
good
this
idea.
particular thing. So the process is not, it comes directly to us.
Right.
I want to make sure that
Yep.
there's no implication the superintendent can be bypassed on the process
Yep.
there, so.
Thank you.
Because I did see a draft you shared with me of what they're working out, and keeping you firmly in the loop is definitely what we want to have happen.
All right, good.
Okay.
All right, so the next thing, we're going to go to the superintendent's report, but before we dive in there, Kelly, I just want to ask, so we're going to talk about recommended school choice slots for FY 2017, and then you're going to talk about projected enrollments. Can we just kind of blend those together, just so as we get ready to evaluate your recommendation and vote it, we can see what the impact is going to be? All right.
Sure, most certainly.
All right, so go ahead.
When we were looking at school choice openings for next year, a couple of things came into mind. Obviously, we're looking at current configurations of classrooms, number of teachers per grade, et cetera. And with the added pressure that we put more school choice funds into our budget in FY17 to make it work, that in no way affected our decisions. Our decisions were based on how many students can we absorb within our system without having to add staff and maintain acceptable classroom sizes. So, having said that, we have seven students in grade 12, choice students that are graduating this year. So, in order to break even, we'd be looking at 7. We have a proposal here that increases that, but it doesn't mean we're going to get those students. Students typically enter our systems at various grade levels and not throughout the grade levels. So, kindergarten is obviously an entrance point for parents, and we feel that we can absorb 4 into the program and maintain adequate class sizes with that. Now, we're at 114 students this year in kindergarten, and we're projecting with that 107 students. So we still have seven students in terms of room to take in for move-ins in the summer, and it's hard to determine patterns at this point in time, but I think that's a pretty conservative approach to ensure that we're okay. If we had 20 move in, we could deal with it, because we do have tuition for the afternoon program, and we could increase staff to accommodate. So I'm not worried about the kindergarten enrollment at all at this point in time, and the services that we could provide. Grades.
I just want to kind
Sure.
of take these one by one. So you're saying that we would be at projected 107, potentially some move-ins, which would get us, maybe into like the 110, 112 range. But I'm looking at, we're projecting first grade at 132 and second grade at 128. So even if we go into like the 110, 115 range, we're still lower than we have been the last couple of years.
Exactly, right. We're not going to get to the point where, well, maybe down the road, but through school choice, we're not going to be able to get to the point where we have a similar number of students in each grade. That just doesn't
No,
happen.
and that's not what I would,
Yeah.
I just want to, I see that we've been meeting the needs at a higher number than even with these choice seats we're adding. So I'm personally comfortable
Yeah.
with that particular one.
So you provided, sorry to just keep
Yeah, that's
jumping in,
right.
but you provided one tidbit of data there that would almost be useful. I know, and I think it works up to grade 5. There, you said the capacity. So you said, I think you said at kindergarten, our capacity is 120, or you threw out a number there. It'd be nice if we could have that number down there.
No, that's a good idea.
Because then I think you'd probably be saying is that first and second, we're probably pretty close to capacity.
Right.
But
Well,
those will cycle through.
capacity may not be the right word.
Yeah,
Previous year's enrollment, and I can give you that enrollment as I'm going through, but we can add that next year to.
Well, I guess,
have that picture.
I guess I did maybe use the term capacity intentionally there in terms of what's our recommended maximum classroom size for the team that we have in place, right? Is it, I'm not going to put any numbers out here, but you have a feel for how many students your current teaching
Right.
staff can handle.
With an idea of what the demographics are like. You can't separate classroom demographics from acceptable class sizes.
Yeah, no,
So-
yeah.
And
I
I
just wanna
think,
be
and the other thing to keep in mind is that that if you put that number up there, it's with those caveats, but it's also with the current staffing. So if we thought that we were going to have more than we could meet, then we would, the theory would be that we would shuffle, reallocate resources, or if totally necessary, add resources.
Right.
So it's not like
Right.
we would hold you, or we would hold the district to that number, correct?
But I want to get a feel for, as we start, I get a sense based on the number of new housing units that we're putting in, that we may, while the overall demographics of Massachusetts may be going down, some of the communities that are experiencing growth there, and we may be seeing an upward trend of which, at some point, those trending data would say, even if we don't do school choice, you're hitting 145 kids at third grade, which 3 teachers, is not a sufficient teacher capacity to
Right.
do it. So that may help us, maybe we want it decoupled from the school choice numbers, but in terms of us trying to understand what's happening with the influx of students in general and its effect on staff, potential effect on staffing, I'm looking for an aid to help us be looking at that a little differently.
Well, we definitely have fluctuations by sometimes up to 25 students, and we've been able to accommodate that capacity through the system. We ran into a snag at the middle school 3 years ago, but we were able to take care of that through the addition of general classroom head assistants, because the middle school concept of educating students is far more complex than elementary. We would have had to have been hiring .2 staffs all over the place, which isn't feasible. So we have a good idea of what our height of the wave is, so to speak, and when we're keeping an eye on that as these students flow through our system. The recommendations that we've made are in no way reaching the capacity of the height of the wave, so to speak. We've been very conservative, but at the same time, as your superintendent, I can't ignore the fact that we've created a revenue stream that we're dependent on. And so it's kind of a balance between, we need the money, but we also have to preserve classroom sizes, and we don't want to end up in a situation where we have an inefficiency as a result of bringing school choice in and having to hire another staff member.
So I wasn't concerned about your recommendation on the school choice part of that. I was very comfortable with the numbers there. I was leaning more towards, as I look at, just even at K through 2, the 132, the 128, versus what are you where's, again, where are you comfortable with that number approaching with our current staffing levels?
We're at the edge. My prediction, it may not come true, it depends on patterns that we see, but from what I'm seeing so far, it seems to be a pretty traditional pattern when people are moving into new housing in towns. The lower grades are affected the most, and I'm seeing that trend starting K to 5.
Right.
That's where we have an influx. It's very hard to predict exactly where those kids are landing. I can say, K-5 seems to be where we're seeing new students. We're running close to capacity, if we want to use that word, in those classes. Right now, though, Darrell, to help you out, we have 127 currently in grade 1 and 131 currently in grade 2. So if you look at the projected for next year, we're very close.
So how did you come to there must be some logic then to saying that for grade 2, you're proposing to add one there, even though you'll now be 2 students higher than last year? So
Well,
is last
actually-
year's number, are you saying there was some wiggle room?
No, we're at 131 right now in grade 2, and we'd be at 128 next year. If you go to the...
Oh, grade 2, sorry, I was looking at grade 1. Okay, yeah, all right.
And again, I cannot lose the demographics in this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Our district is demographically changing. I may come back to you in 2 years and say, I'm kind of concerned about our class sizes because of our demographic changes. So, as long as as our demographic swing isn't too great, we're going to be fine. That's pretty hard to predict.
Okay, we're good?
Yep,
All right.
I'm good.
So, sorry, good, Alex?
I just want to, we've talked about class size every year around this time, usually as part of this conversation. Over the last year or so, particularly this budget cycle, I think we started talking about how school choice is, as Kelly said, it's become a revenue stream we've become dependent upon, which could hamstring us in the future, particularly with a lot of development going on in town. I have no problem with this vote tonight,
Well,
but I think,
sorry, I want you to make your point when we go to vote the whole thing. Because we've only talked about one grade so far, and I deliberately, and Daryl made a point. So hold on to that thought, and let's just get to the end of that, and then we're gonna have a general discussion about school choice, and I think that's, your point's gonna be more salient at that point, actually.
Sure.
That's when I wanna hear it, so.
Okay.
go
So
ahead.
I covered grade 2.
Yep.
So with grade 2, we'd be at, our project is 120, and we're currently at 131. Grade 7, we're proposing 5. This is the first time in a couple of years that we've opened that up. In grade 7 right now, we're at 115, and we would be at 114 with the proposal of 5 more students, so very close.
No, you made a point a few minutes ago about there are different entry points. How confident are you about 7th grade as an entry point?
It's interesting, seventh grade is a transition grade because we have students choosing to go to Parker and other schools at that point in time. So we have a bit of a migration out. So I'm not concerned at all. It seems to be a pretty steady pattern, 5 or 6 kids every
But
year.
do we typically see families that are, when we open choice at that grade, is that a point in a family's development where they're thinking, hey, let's make a change? And
Grade 6 and 7.
Okay.
They prefer grade 6, but they're comfortable with grade 7
Okay.
as well. Grade 8's a different story.
Yeah,
But an entry point would be, a perfect entry point would be grade 6.
okay.
But the people that don't get in grade 6 are back on our doorsteps
Gotcha.
for grade 7,
All right.
so.
Thank you.
Okay. Grade 9 this year, we did a prediction of how many students are going to Schcmte Tech and choosing other venues. And we feel we feel confident that right now we have 109 in grade 9, and next year it was a lower grade this year. We feel that we can handle the 133, which I think is a little high. We were conservative there. We may lose more students going to other schools, but we're staffed for that number at this point in time. Grade 9 is another entry point for us. We typically have 5 or 6 students a year wanting to get into grade 9, and we haven't been able to accommodate them. In fact, we don't open up grade 9 seats very often, but we felt that we were able to do that this year. I really feel that the enrollment that I have, or that we have on this page, did not adequately portray, I'm just looking at my numbers now, and I can confirm that, the students that have chosen to go out. I think at the 133 would be more like 123 at this point in time. These sheets were done a little earlier on, and we've had more recent information to hone in on what our enrollment may be. Now, in high school, you also have to remember we have families in town that bring in exchange students, and so far that hasn't hindered what we're trying to do, but as our enrollment increases as a result of new housing, we may have to sit down and create some policies around that area.
Let's ask a question to Dr. Harrington. So this particular grade is the grade that caught us by surprise several years ago when they all showed up for kindergarten that year, and we've been managing them through the system, and we're going to make another transition into another building. How are we feeling at the high school about having this grade show up? And now, you're right, it's not going to be as large as it was because there's that natural attrition that we have in this particular area with a lot of competition that we have. But how are we feeling about it? You guys feeling about it?
Feel ready. I talked to, Mark sent an email to us, with Kelly and me giving projected numbers that were a little less than we expected initially. I'd say back if you asked us in the fall, we projected a higher number. Mark has a sense of well, who's being admitted to private school now and who's being admitted to the tech. So it was a little less than the expected income in ninth grade that we were thinking about in the fall is less than expected. So not by a lot, but even a shift in a small high school or a grade level of 6 kids is enough to open up some seats potentially for school choice. We are ever mindful of potential movements. And in fact, that's been something you were part of earlier this year, where someone from Colorado wanted to meet with the school committee member. That person is coming to the high school.
I closed that deal.
You closed the deal. They sent a box of chocolates. They
job.
did. They sent Rocky Mountain chocolates. And also, we have 2 families potentially relocating from India, purchasing homes in Littleton. They were scouting us out throughout the year. One family has been looking at us for 2 years, as well as surrounding towns, and trying to make a decision of where to purchase property. But they were particularly concerned about the performance of the high school and wanted to get to know. I had extended conversations with the parent over 2 years and in-person meetings, because that was intriguing. And then
Did you close the deal too?
we're still waiting to hear on that one. I think so.
I closed the deal.
I have to bring you in, the closer.
The closer.
But I think, that's the thing Kelly and I have talked about, sort of the attractiveness of the community as a place to raise a family, and people in particular looking at the high school for college preparation. And so we are expecting, the developments that have been mentioned and throughout the year, the possibility of movements. But to answer your question succinctly, we feel ready with this number of 3 seats. We have a 3-2-5, I think, configuration with no seats available for 12th grade, because that is our largest class. And it's just not always a good year to have someone transition into the high school. We have people who often, this year, in past years as well, we always pick up a 12th grader or 2 for various family reasons, relocations of families in that year, and just changes in family dynamics. So that's something that has happened. So I think I'm pretty confident with these numbers will be fine. The 3-2-5 at 9th, 10th, 11th.
The more realistic number would be about 120 at this point in time. And grade 10, we're proposing 2. Not very often do we have people phoning us about the grade 10 year, so the chances of filling those seats are minimal. Grade 11, we have a fairly small class. We're predicting, even if we had 5 students move in, we'd have 112. The chances of juniors moving in again, it's not a popular transition grade, unless people are relocating for jobs, or there has to be a reason for it.
And one of the things that's happened to us in the later years is that, and this has happened to us in the last 2 years, and it's happened again. I just had a meeting this morning with a parent of a family who needs to move, is moving out of Littleton, but loves the Littleton schools. The child has been part of our school community since they were very young, and since the beginning, and wants to finish out. We're sensitive and partial to those families because we know that they're part of Littleton, and they want to finish out their high school experience. With the 12th grade year, it's easy for us to usually accommodate a family, even outside of school choice with superintendent approval for just finishing out your senior year. But with 2 years, we really need to go through the school choice process, and this family is looking to pursue school choice.
Excellent.
All right, so now we've had the full proposal, so Alex,
Thank you.
thank you.
When we talk about school choice every year, we acknowledge that we're becoming more and more dependent on the funding, and particularly in recent years where we've had to dip into that funding source just to run our programs, and now more and more, right now at a deficit, which isn't to say that we are in deficit, it's just to say that the account, that one particular account is, we're spending more out of it than we take in. I think it would be wise for us to come up with a longer range plan, and then to still have these year-to-year decisions, but to know, I'd like to know, looking at this, what we're going to be doing 3 years from now, and I don't think we have an answer for that, because we've been busy with about what's right in front of us. But to go to one of Kelly's favorites, I think we should be more in quadrant 2 on this, rather than quadrant 1.
The difficulty, Alex, is I've been in situations where we felt our choice student population was going to go down, and we actually increased it because our resident enrollment had us add more staff, and it created a void. In other words, we added another teacher at grade 2, and we only had 13 students in that class, and we could actually add another 10 to balance it out. So it's really difficult to figure out what that patterning is going to be. I think a general conservative approach to this would be to sit down and figure out on a predicted trajectory downward, how many students do we feel we're going to lose in school choice in the next 3 years or 4 years, and even have a trajectory as simple as 2 students a year. So in 3 years, we're down 6 students, which is $30,000. I think in terms of budget planning, that would be a far better approach than looking at an upswing, because we're all concerned that, you know, being conservative, there are no guarantees that pattern in terms of increase will continue, or even maintenance. So I think that would be the best way to proceed.
I think what I would be looking for in the long term would be a plan or an expectation of overall enrollments and how school choice factors into that, because I have a hard time looking at school choice without looking at the overall enrollment, and that's why I'm glad that we have the conversations together each year. But in terms of a long-term plan, if we are looking at and say, well, we expect school choice to go down 2 students every year, if that's the number, if that's the expectation, I'd like to see that matched with our enrollment predictions, which again will change year to year. It's a funny business, and we're not going to get it right every time. It's kind of like telling the
I'd
weather.
like I think you're making a great point, and I like the idea.
I have one more point that no one has addressed yet tonight, and that is an issue of the space that we have.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So because we've talked about this, and I've been thinking about this. And to Daryl's point, he said earlier, it'd be nice to have a column on capacity, staffing capacity, and then you're talking about, you know, projecting out, and then Kelly's talking about, you got to project out, but you got to think about people matriculating out. What I would like to see us do, we talked about really doing a robust evaluation of our physical capacity, because we keep thinking about this growth in town, so we need to have a good idea of how much physical capacity do we have. But based on the conversation we're having now, I would like to integrate into that our staffing capacity as well, and what it means relative to overall enrollment. And as Kelly just said, you might actually identify pockets of where you might actually add choice in order to get to that critical mass where hiring a staff member you're going to get the efficiency of scale that we need to survive as an organization. So I think we should integrate all of those thoughts into that same process. And you know, it's going to be complex, but it may take us a while to really make it meaningful. But I think we should start. I think we really need to start that. And I like the point you're making about let's look out and not just do this year by year and have a plan. And you're right, it's going to have to be modified because they're going to be broad. The farther you go, the less valid your assumptions become. But you have to try. You have to make some assumptions. And you can use trend analysis however you want to do it, or do some research on other districts and things like that. But I think it's a very valid idea, and I'd like to integrate it into the whole concept of let's evaluate our capacities, both physical, staffing, and go from there.
We can certainly do that. Just to show you how non-linear patterning is, right now at Shaker Lane, we're at 473. Even with what we're predicting, we go down to 435. I mean, sometimes it doesn't make sense in a strategic thought process. And it always amazes me how, because we're a smaller system, how one class, even though we're increasing other areas, counterbalances the increase. I mean, that's a significant change in population from one year to the next. So the capacity issue, I think, is a good conversation to have. But don't ever think that we're going to have a linear plotting of what's happening. It usually doesn't work that way.
One other thing relative to the school choice and budget pieces there. I wonder if we want to be thinking about, do we want to set a target and then start adjusting our budget to hit that? So right now, we have some number of school choice students projected, and instead of, maybe we want to talk to the selectmen and our own budget process, is that we don't want to become more dependent than 15 or 20 or 25 school choice students to support the budget, and we want to start adjusting our appropriated budget to get us down to a maximum of N school choice in students, kind of thing there. Then if we have an influx, that's great, we could build a little bit of reserve for other times, and if it dips below that, it's not critical, like it's probably on the path to be at this point.
Oh, for sure.
And that might just frame a little bit in terms of a balance of how do we want to start recommending our budget, our appropriated budget there with a more concrete plan to balance how much school choice that we use.
I was alluding to that earlier. We have 81 choice students this year. So if we even decrease by 2 each year, in 3 years, that would be 6 less. Depends on what we want to set as a benchmark for budgeting. But I think it would be a mistake to assume that we're going to maintain 81 students as we move
absolutely,
forward.
absolutely, right.
And I would say that, just going further is if we're at 81, we pick a number, say 40, and that's what we're targeting to be our maximum usage of school choice funds.
Right.
Then if it's down 6 or up 6, we're on a path, and we will deal with it as it comes, type of thing. There. But relative to the demographics, it's an area that I'm interested in, and I've been following along time, but I just even noticed the demographics of the 19 houses they just put across the street from me there in terms of, yeah, we're going to have a bubble of kids coming through our schools there, but their ages are all over the place from 0 to or -9 to -9 months to the group that's already at the bus stop.
One thing I wanted to point out too, and it's really interesting for me because, this is the first state that I've ever worked in where if you take students in, it's a reduced rate. In my last districts, I was a choice district, and for every student that I took in, I was given the average per student state cost of the student, which is over double what we're getting now. So 6 students is a lot more money when you're talking, with those numbers. It's, in my opinion, a formula that's broken and somehow needs to be addressed. Why would anybody think that if we took a student in, it would cost less than the state average to educate that student? I don't know where they come up with these numbers, to be honest with you, at times.
It's the way Cool Hand Luke came up with it, when he said he's going to eat 50 hard-boiled eggs. I said, why'd you say 50, Luke? It seemed like a nice round number. Sorry.
All right.
Quick question, so the school choice seats, so do we vote on
Yes.
those? And then the 20, are those earmarked for those grades, or are you just showing us your math with how you got to?
They're earmarked for those grades.
And so then my question is like, so for say for grade 9, if we don't reach, or for any of these grades, if you don't reach the number that you're earmarking, do those free up? Because I'm looking at like for grade 9, you said that this year we had 109 students?
Correct.
And next year we're projecting to have?
120. I'd change that number.
So 120.
Not what he said.
Okay.
It was, what didn't happen when this table was created is they didn't take into account the students exiting from grade 8. We didn't have that information when this table was created, so it wasn't updated, so.
Okay. So, so for example, so now we're already going to have more students in grade 9. Did we add staff, so we already have more students there, so that number of adding those seats, we're already going to be greater than what we were this year. And so is there any logic, like if we don't fill those school choice seats, did they move, can you use them for grade 10 where we seem to have a dip in?
Well, I always, as somebody in charge of the operations, we look for opportunities, but we wait to see what we have. I mean, every year we look for opportunities in that area. But yeah, just a comment you made, and I'm just trying to interpret that comment. It's a mistake to look at staffing and assign it to the previous year's enrollment. We have fluctuations in enrollment, as I just pointed out, at Shaker Lane from year to year, and all of our schools from year to year. And our staffing may not be indicative of that number that you have before you. For example, for years, the high school, we had a small wave of kids going through. We didn't downsize because we needed the broad-based programming, and we knew we had larger class sizes coming through. So it not...
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that would be the case. I was trying to figure out why we wouldn't have had more school choice students last year since we had fewer students. And so that would be one, that'd be the only option I could think of why we would have more students in grade 9 and be adding school choice. That's the only logic that I could come up with why that wouldn't be happening is if, for example, we added staff because we had the, the example that you gave earlier about the grade 5 or whatever it was.
Remember last year, we were dealing with adding a teacher in phys ed because of the CPR review. We were retooling some of our staff and subject area offerings, so we were being very conservative at that point in time.
Okay.
And we had the 40B coming online, and we really didn't know what that was going to mean to us.
So maybe a
we were
conservative year,
ultra
yeah, okay.
conservative last year.
Right.
Matt, any thoughts, comments?
Nope.
I want to reemphasize one thing that you stated at the beginning of this discussion, and it was a good discussion, and robust, and I think we figured some stuff out that I think is going to be meaningful to us as we move forward. However, we can't decouple school choice from the budgeting and the use of the school choice funds, but I just want to reiterate the point you made. The determination of how many seats we open is done independently of the budget process. You took care of that. You're presenting to us. This was not part of our discussions at the budget subcommittee. It never is. We look at what our projected income is, but we don't think like, oh, let's squeeze some more seats in. We don't talk about it like that at budget subcommittee. We never have, and we won't. And we don't talk about, when we talk about the budget here, we've never offered up, well, let's just go get some more school choice kids in and we'll close the gap. That's not how we think about it. We think about it relative to the comment you made about, is this the right thing to do for the district? And there may be specific reasons why you should do it. Forget the money aspect of it. It just makes it, we get those efficiencies of scale, and we're able to do it. So I just want to make sure we understand. We said it once at the beginning, we're going to say it one more at the end. This is a separate discussion from the budget process.
Appreciate you saying that.
All right, we good then? We need to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the school choice slots as recommended by the superintendent.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Superintendent, can I just make a comment? I just wanted to let the motion go through, but I just want to reinforce the Chairman's earlier comments and Superintendent's earlier comments about facilities and making sure that we're constantly looking at staffing as well as facilities, because just the high school, I'll speak for the high school, I can see upcoming needs related to program changes, offerings. There's definitely a demand and a groundswell of support for robotics program at the high school. That's going to be a facilities issue in the near future for the high school, as well as a potential special ed program to keep more students in district. Will come at some cost savings, but that will require some facilities changes within our building, and just even additional support services for all our students, such as potential expansion of a tutoring center, because that's become really popular this past year. High demand for all kinds of kids, regardless of achievement level, just looking for some support in a particular area. So I just wanted to echo what you had said earlier about really looking at not just staffing, but facilities issues, particularly I'll speak on behalf of the high school. So thank you for saying that earlier.
Great. You're welcome. All right. Two of those. Food service update.
Yep, so there's a report in your packet. I won't go into real details over the numbers. The deficit has basically stabilized over the last couple of years, so we're still running in a deficit situation. Unfortunately, we're working on strategies to mitigate that. At this point in time, also in the year, and for this particular report, we were in a pattern where we were buying inventory to get us through the rest of the year. So some of this will be mitigated through the meal sales, but we won't be buying inventory. So we expect this number to get a little bit better, but probably not much better. So we're still running in a deficit, unfortunately, and we're working on some strategies to help next year, possibly some restructuring ideas and some other ideas to, again, help mitigate some of these deficits. So I wish it was better news, but that's where we're at this point in time.
I think you're being too hard on yourself. This has been the most efficient system I've ever had in terms of food services. In other districts I've had, we've been putting, I mean, they're larger, but on average, we were putting in $120,000 a year to support the program. So I think you've done a tremendous job at maintaining costs, considering the increase in food prices, the change in regulations in terms of what we can serve. Foods are more expensive, healthier foods are more expensive. So I really think we've done a good job. Our meal counts are far more stabilized than they were in the past. We ventured into a trial breakfast program at the middle school this year. It's been very successful. We just had a meeting yesterday, and we're intending on expanding that to Russell Street next year and Tiger's Den, with a cost-neutral approach to offering breakfast. Talk about school start times. Breakfast is right up there with school start times. We have a number of kids that sometimes by choice aren't eating breakfast. We get them in school. The grab-and-go concept works wonderful, and they get fueled up and ready to go. Speaking of fueled up, we're trying to tie that into a program called Fuel Up 60, which we've done every now and again in our district. So.
Comments?
I just want to make sure I got it. So this year we put aside $10,000 out of the appropriated budget, and if I read this right, we're running $10,000 beyond that.
That's correct.
At this point.
That's correct.
There. So I just want to make sure of that. The one thing, and it's not the conversation for tonight, but when we do, never mind. I don't have the question form, so I'll pass.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you.
All right. MASC annual business meeting, voting delegate for resolutions.
Seemed very early this year, but they want things done earlier for some reason. So this is the assignment or appointment of somebody to go down to the MASC conference in the fall and act on behalf of the school committee to vote on resolutions.
I think, Alex, you've been grabbing onto that. Want to go again?
I'd be happy to go again. If Daryl wants to.
Well, I was going to ask that if I am successful in getting a resolution, I would like to actually be our voting delegate for that. And I'll set the time aside from work to at least be able to make the
Now, that
Friday.
wouldn't preclude you from going, it would just be preclude
Yeah, no, I'm
you
fine
from,
with that.
right. When's the drop dead date on this?
They wanted
October
things,
21st.
yeah, they really wanted this done by the end of June to have all this in.
But can you change it up
Assuming you can change your
until-
voting delegate.
Oh,
So should we name, it doesn't matter.
I wouldn't mind attending this
All
year.
right, let's
and-
put Daryl on there, and if
Like I
something
said, I'm gonna try to
changes,
push-
okay.
Yeah.
If you decide you don't want to do it because it didn't happen,
But I think I'll still,
that sounds
but
good.
I'd appreciate the opportunity to be the delegate this year.
All right. You want a motion on that, or is consensus sufficient?
Consensus is fine.
All right, anything else under the superintendent's report?
Oh, yeah, good, thanks.
All right. Interested citizens. Citizen. Interested citizen.
Citizen.
Citizen Boone.
I really just want to come up and say that we had a CPAC meeting this past week, and we had Rita and two of the school psychologists come and give a talk about the current executive function strategies and really essentially curriculum that they've been starting to use at the middle school and high school, and it's really great stuff that's happening. It's still very beginning, and it's really targeted at the highest need students right now, but it's a great move for our school district, and I'm really pleased that they're able to come, and we're hoping as CPAC, because we had a small showing, but I'm hoping to get more information out to parents about what's happening. So the next thing is that Peg Dawson is coming into our district. This is not a CPAC thing. This was done through Rita, but I just wanted to expand hopefully if somebody watches this, that she'll be here on May 25th, and there will be a parent or community essentially, but it's meant for adults, not students, workshop from 3:30 to 5 at the high school. And I just think it's going to be phenomenal. It's really great for educating people about executive function difficulties and strategies about how to first recognize them and then what you can do to help your students. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. So any way to get that information out to parents, this is my way of doing it as one piece. So because Rita doesn't usually get up and talk about these things, and I can as an interested citizen. So that being said, I have one little thing that's not a CPAC thing, about a policy that's coming up. And I don't know, I just wanted to put this out there. So I know you're updating the wellness, or I guess, what's it called? Is it called the wellness policy? Mm-hmm. The one thing that I would love to see, now it doesn't have to change now, but being explored, and I should have brought it up here. Obviously, the nutrition has always been a very big focus of not just us, but in general, that's been something that they've been hyper-focused on, and there's a lot of guidelines and curriculum. And then physical education fell underneath that as well, to try to make people more physically healthy. The mental health is now coming about because of problems that have existed and that are getting more, people are more aware of the need. The wording, basically, after the initial nutrition, it talks about nutrition and physical education, and it didn't include the new wellness piece, and it specifically talks about curriculum, adding curriculum, and I would love to see, the state has published, it falls under the anti-bullying, but it's very specific to guidelines on curriculum for, it's not technically called mental health, but it's social and emotional guidelines on and it's through development. So I would love to see us be able to encompass that as well as, the nutrition and physical education somehow. And see that happening. I think we do some of that, but it's not written in the policy the same way as the other two currently. So it's just something to think about if we can add that at some point, and certainly the superintendent and the admin council can figure out if that is appropriate. But I think that we're all shifting towards that, and if we're going to change the policy to include that piece, I'd love to see, the added idea of the curriculum being done throughout or integrated, which like I said, I think we are doing. It would be nice to see it written there. So that's it.
So you were late, so just 2 points. So you got that, take care of that. Mike's now the policy guy.
No, Alex.
Oh, sorry, Alex.
Alex is policy guy?
Pretty
sure it's mine.
So who's the
I got it, but
who's
some
the
people
new
look at the wrong
who's
guy.
the new
We
CPAC
reorganized a
guy?
little bit, and then Matt Hunt is now our liaison to CPAC.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering. I know, I'm sorry. I can never seem to quite get here for the pledge.
You're busy.
Just want to catch you up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
You must feel good down there, Daryl.
All right, he's like, "Ooh, I'm jaunty." All right. Subcommittee reports, PMBC.
Let's see, lots going on. I'm meeting with the town accountant on Saturday to just sort of catch up some of the books. I want to confirm availability of $50,000 in classroom painting funds that were allocated last year but not actually tasked, that those funds are still available so that we can get that incorporated into your summer planning there. The one item that I think it's still stuck there, that we talked about a month and a half ago about the town, having town council send a letter to the abutter that's using Shaker Lane as a driveway. At the last meeting, they were talking about who's going to sign out the letter. And I was told them we were comfortable with the selectmen or the town council signing the letter out, but apparently that's reached a snag. So what I would like to do is, I would like to kick it free and give them options from, do we care if it's signed out by the school committee or the superintendent, or, you know, I'd like to go back on next Wednesday and say, as a committee, if it kicks it out by needing to be signed by school committee, we'll sign it out and just send it to us, or to send it to you.
I need to say something here. We were fully prepared to take ownership of this issue, and then we received an email from the building committee. It was one of the committees stating we should not sign this in any way. This is not our property. The town should be signing it. So we backed off at that point in time. I talked to Keith and I said, Keith, you need to take care of this. You know, if it's not our property, we're not signing it.
Right.
So I don't know what they're doing, but as soon as I received that email, I just bowed out.
No, I'm not sure of all of, unfortunately, I'm not on all of the correspondence that goes on this there. I don't know what prompted that there, but it's clearly a piece of property owned by the town of Littleton. Whether it's under care and custody of the school committee or care and custody of the selectmen, to me, doesn't matter relative to this issue, but it seems to make a big deal to some other people in terms of how this letter gets signed out there. Tax records clearly show that it's a school property there, so I don't know why this has come up. So
Why is town council just not comfortable signing it?
I thought the practice was town council would sign out the letter on behalf of the town.
Right.
But instead, he wants it forwarded out to either come from the selectmen or the school committee or from the superintendent or from, I don't understand the things there, but this has gone on for over 2.5 months. And so I want to just come to, provide some crisp direction that we get this dealt with, because it's hasn't been.
Yeah, and if I may, I just want to remind everybody, part of the issue is the accessing of the property across the Shaker Lane driveway and the damage it's doing to that driveway.
Yeah.
So,
I think all the boards have reached a consensus that the letter should go out. So if this is what is required, I have no problem with go and see what you can effect as a solution and come back to us with the solution. And if we're going to sign it, we'll sign it. We'll sign it. That's.
Yep. Yeah, if Darryl, you investigate it and you as a school committee, you think it's okay to sign, I'll certainly sign it. But when
I'll sign it.
received that email, I didn't want to put the school committee.
I would actually prefer that we sign it, because it's not a superintendent issue, it's a
No, that's what I mean. I'd like to, if it's okay with the committee, I'll go back
Offer that out
and
there.
offer that if it still hasn't passed, the school committee is willing to sign the letter.
That's fine.
Except that, no, concern, is there confusion as to whether, so I'm actually not familiar with the issue there. Somebody's using the entrance to Shaker Lane.
No, they're cutting across their backyard through the parking lot as the driveway.
Are they parking in the parking lot?
No, they're driving
They're
across.
driving-
When they're driving yard work and stuff
They're
like
literally
that.
driving across.
down
Okay.
there.
but
And so there's
they're damaging the driveway and the berm that's there that was just repaved.
Now, someone a second ago said there was a question about whether or not we own, I'm confused, that confused me.
Well, I was confused too, but I was.
Is there any confusion as to whether or not
I
we
do
own the
not believe
property?
there's confusion, but
Okay. Yeah, if we own, if it's clear that we own the property that they're essentially trespassing on, then the.
Oh, that's not the issue. The question is not that we, the town owns the property.
No,
The question
the
is,
school
do the
or-
school or
Right.
does the
Right.
town, i.e.
Technical,
Board of
right, who's the
Selectmen?
technical, and so I do think that should be the answer. I wouldn't say the school committee should be sending a letter if we're not the.
No, but the problem is
record.
that they're not gonna send the letter. so, because they're
It hasn't
blocking,
been
so at
sent
this
for 2
point, let's
months.
just get the
Yeah,
letter
so I-
signed. Who cares who signs it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
And just a point of caution, if you sign the letter and it's ignored, then you're obligated to take the next steps.
Right.
So just
Well, no,
just want you to be
that's why I
aware.
had recommended that, it come from, and that's why I said, the only reason I was hesitant before in terms of school committee sending it out is we need town council to help enforce it.
Right.
Because we're not gonna go back through our legal, support to do that, of which we don't control town council.
but we have enough rapport, we can make that.
Yeah, no,
we'll
but,
figure
so
that out.
I'll just I'll make a recommendation that if it's still stuck, we need to get it unstuck to get this here. And if it escalates, we'll figure out how to escalate it,
Exactly.
but doing nothing has not resolved the problem at all.
I mean, honestly, even if they sent it and it escalated, I would still expect us to be part of that dialogue anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, my goal is just to get it unstuck
Yeah.
and not have this continue on it, so that was the excitement of PMBC.
Rock and roll.
Well,
All right, that it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, budget subcommittee. So, we haven't met, but I think we should meet, specifically to talk about when we were going through the budget process and working with the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, we reached an agreement on what the appropriation was gonna be. And it was based on some assumptions that were made. And one of the points that was made was, if the assumptions turn out to be erroneous in terms of the monies that the town receives for local aid in Chapter 70 and other things like that, that don't come from our direct property tax base, that if it's lower, that we would all have to reconvene, get back together, strategize about how to deal with it. And the point that the school committee made at that particular meeting was, good point, and if the assumptions were wrong in the sense that we're gonna end up with more money, then we should also get together and figure out, strategize about what we as a town gonna do. And it appears that and the issue is that we're waiting for the state to finish their budgeting process. We've talked many times about how it's not well aligned in terms of timing with our budgeting process. But right now, some information that we have indicates that the Chapter 70 allocation might be higher, probably about $50,000, correct?
Correct.
Than we thought it was gonna be. So what I would like to do is, Alex and I will get together with the superintendent and the business manager to talk about reaching out to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee to just say, hey, this is new information, we should think about what we want to do and how we want to approach it. So I want to go ahead and do that sooner rather than later. I wanted to wait till we got past town meeting and the elections, because that might have changed, there's a new chair on the Board of Selectmen, I don't know if FinCom's reorged yet, but now we know who the players are, and I think we should go ahead and execute on that.
Yep, I can try and coordinate that meeting if you want.
But really what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop a memo and send it to them, and that'll kick off. When do you guys, how do you wanna meet? Do you wanna, we've had working groups meeting, and then we've gone out of, when we've thought we've had some ideas, we've gone to our boards and then to joint meetings, so we'll see if they wanna do that and what their time. They may say that they wanna wait a little bit longer to see exactly what transpires, which would be fine. But I just wanna get on record as saying, hey, we have this new information. We all said that if the information changed or the assumptions, the reality changed based on the assumptions, that we would get together and talk about it. So we have a little bit of information. I think the timing is right as we get past town meeting and elections to go ahead and start that process. So, all right, and I don't really think there's anything else we need to talk about in terms of budget subcommittee.
Do we want to talk about the budget visioning?
Yeah.
Or do you want to wait till the next meeting? to bring it
Yeah,
up?
let's wait till the next meeting. One thing that we've been thinking about maybe is using the August workshop to maybe talk about budgeting strategy, and then Alex had a good point about possibly, as we get to the end of our spending in FY 2016, to have a conversation with the admin team about budget visioning relative to, you just finished the school year, what do you think? So maybe what the right thing to do would be to let's have a conversation with Kelly about that. He can talk to his admin team, and they can come up with a response. Instead of catching them on the fly like this, they can actually frame it.
Oh, yeah, no, not now.
Yeah. So let's do that. So yeah, let's do that, all right, and we'll put that on. Don't be afraid to send an email out and just get that ball rolling faster. All right. All right. Good. All right. Policy Subcommittee.
All right, so tonight I'm got my second reading of all of the updated policies that we've been talking about last meeting, and I included the updates on the advertising for the testimonials and the non-school groups usage pieces there. So if there was not any other discussions on the policies, I'd ask for the 3 motions that are in the packet there.
All right. Are there any discussions before we start moving on to motions? All right. Hearing none.
I make a motion to accept for a second reading the following reviewed policies: EBC, IHB, JICA, JJIF.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded.
I don't want to say it again.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
What's that?
Coming. It's coming.
It's in the second.
That's the next one. I make a motion to accept for a second reading the following revised policies: AD, ADF, BDE, GBEC, IHAMB, IJNDB, IKB, IKF, JH, JIC, JICH, JJF, JLCD, KHB.
Motion is made and seconded. I'm sorry, made. Seconded. Seconded. Come on, let's go.
Want to be here all night?
He's still in shock that he has to take over the policies. It's just slowing him down. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, lastly.
I make a motion to accept for a second reading to rescind the following policies: IA and IHBB.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, so that's it? You're done?
That's my,
That's your...
that's my.
That's the last hurrah.
All right.
Last hurrah for Darryl.
We're kidding around, but having been on the school committee for going on my 11th year now, you know, Darryl's ability and willingness to grab it by the reins and get our arms around that process, being one thing that was significant. But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, he does the heavy lifting on the actual wording of the policies, and he's very diligent about, you know, researching statute, researching MASC recommendations, working with the superintendent on all of this, and we are in a terrific spot. I mean, your job's going to be easy. Yeah, it's easy.
I've got big shoes
You
to
know,
fill.
crazy. So, but no, we really appreciate it, Darryl. It was a significant commitment, and you really carried that water for a long time, so we very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Darryl, I think you should consider, since you've developed such great expertise, offering a session at the fall MASC conference. People could really benefit from your approach to policy revision.
All right, do we have any other business?
Well, we're good.
No need for an executive session. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Matt, did we tell you that rookie has...